I do want to go back to some of the CEOs who have had a chance to chat with the President of the United States, including this fellow, EY Global Chairman and CEO, Mark Weinberger. Mark, very good to have you. Thanks for coming.
Thanks. Good to be here.
I know you've been concerned about a lot of things, including this travel ban. The White House says it's not a ban. I know you've heard the drill, but you said that this would have an impact on our ability to work as a global organization. You're referring to your own company, I understand, but in the greater corporate sense that it could come back to boomerang. Did that come up, Mark, at the meeting today with the President?
Yes, this was a topic that was brought up and a good discussion about it. There was a lot of different businesses talking about the importance of mobility and allowing a free flow of people to come in different countries. We have a lot of people in the U.S. that work outside the borders, a lot of people outside the borders that come to the U.S., and that there's clearly a recognition of the need for improved security, but not at the expense of immigration and moving people around, and certainly not anything that would inhibit our view of the world view of us to be a good citizen where people want to create jobs and be. And so there was a great dialogue around that.
I know you don't want to indulge confidences here or break them, but was the President receptive to the arguments you and some of your colleagues were raising?
Yes, I think the President was very receptive. He heard how they affect our businesses, talked about maybe process improvements, how future announcements could be made, and listening to us as future decisions are made. Remember, this is a pause. A lot of opportunity to affect this further before there's a final decision made on the policies.
Is it your sense that once the President talked about getting, tax cuts out there, and soon, he didn't specify how soon, but I think he married it with the talk of a health care repeal and replace plan. I'm paraphrasing here, but the market seemed to like that, and they still do. Do you think, and is it your sense, that tax reform, tax cuts are still very much a near-term agenda?
Yeah, this was another topic. So I had two topics that I was assigned to talk about, this and women in the workforce, which is another really important issue. This one was, the message was clear. We need to do tax reform this year. As you said, the expectations are there. It's not going to be easy. It never is to do tax reform. It's why we haven't had it in 30 years. But the House plan, which is out there, the President had a plan. The Senate is thinking about their version. The real message from the business community is we need to get you together. We need to move fast on this process. We need to have lower rates. We need to have a more competitive international system that doesn't create penalties for bringing cash back to the United States for businesses. And we're willing to work with you to get there, but we got to get it done this year.
Was there any concern expressed by anyone there about maybe divided or distracted initiatives? That the traveling might be one of them, the clumsy rollout of addressing health care and divisions within the Republican Party on how to go about that it was taking away from things that were more important?
Well, it's a really good point. I think there's clearly a recognition that they've got a lot on their plate. They're trying to take on a lot of different things. There's a lot that can be done to try and create jobs here. And they have to prioritize, because no matter what, they can do some things on their own through executive order, and they're working through that. But they have to work with Congress. And the health care bills, the tax bills going through reconciliation process have to move through those committees, move through Congress. That takes time. So there was a discussion about really trying to prioritize what could be the most impactful to get done in the short term. And, obviously lots of different points of view on that. But they recognize that you can't do it all at the same time, and they're going to have to do that.
Now, was he receptive to a border tax? So that it's come up by some of his Republican colleagues to help pay for these tax cuts. Can you share anything on that?
Well, it was part of the discussion, is what effect would a border tax have on the companies in the room? How would it affect the exchange rates and prices, and how would it be structured? Is that something that needs to be part of the package? I mean, all that discussion was had. I can't tell you, as you would expect, that, in this kind of meeting where you're only talking about tax and trade for 10, 15, 20 minutes, that there's decisions made. But right. The right questions were asked by him and his economic policy team members, the Vice President and others who were in the room, that they're focused on this issue. And what can we do to get a more competitive tax system? How do you get the rates down low enough? How do you get it all pulled together? And I think they're going to have to work through that with the Senate and with the House over the coming months.
Well, how do you feel about that, just personally and from your corporate view, that you need to pay for these tax cuts, and one of the ways to do it is a tax hike?
Well, there's going to clearly have to be some sort of tax increases to pay for the tax cuts, because while it may not be revenue neutral in every year, it's going to be really hard to make it revenue neutral, any tax reform, in the first couple of years. Over the longer term, I think many people think you ought to try and balance it out. And so that's the real question. How low can you get the rate? And you're going to try and get out the incentives and credits and deductions are in the code to try and go ahead and offset some of that cost and clean it out, make it a simpler system. When you go ahead and allow for this overseas income coming back, not with the penalty tax, that's going to cost some money too. You need provisions that will prevent base erosion, they call it. All those things are in the mix. A border adjustable tax is a way to go ahead and deal with many of the issues. It raises a whole host of new questions, though, about what effect it will have on prices, on exchange rates, really complicated things. How does it apply to the financial services industry where it hasn't been applied in the world? How does it apply to services and tax-exempt entities and governments? These are the questions that are going to be worked on over the next several months, and without those answers, it's really hard to do a complete analysis, but it's coming along.